We are not at Regent University. We're actually in Bible study. Welcome to Bible study. We are in Deuteronomy 31 through 33 this week. And these three chapters literally used to keep me up at night when I was a baby Christian because I could not fathom the idea that Moses did not get into the promised land, because this is where we are within the chapters, is that the Israelites, they're almost at the promised land, and Moses finally got to the point of almost leading them there. Now, God made it very clear to Moses that not only was he not going to set foot in the promised land, but he was not going to even lead them across the Jordan, from my understanding. And I just didn't understand, like, why not? Moses has done such a good job at representing the Lord, and he's done such a good job at really being patient and showing like God's grace and God's patience and everything. And as I'm reading through commentaries and just really digging into just the Bible study, the reason that Moses was not allowed to is because he misrepresented God. You know, in the moment where they were just in the heat of the moment, Moses did break the Ten Commandments and completely just harshly punish them when that was not Moses' place. And it really does show that no matter how high the Lord favors you, if you do something that's not in his will, God has no problem in humbling you. And Moses knew that, in the sense that God did tell him, like, listen, you're not getting into the promised land for this. And although Moses literally went down in history as one of the most famous leaders, famous apostles, famous disciples, he still was not into the promised land. And what I find so beautiful, like bittersweet about that, is that although Moses knew that he wasn't going to get in the promised land, he still knew to follow God's commandment, and that was lead them to to the promised land, because of how important it was, not only for the Israelites, but also for just the promise that God had for them. So, and that really does encourage and also challenge me, because how many times has God told us to do something and we choose not to listen because it doesn't look like it's going to benefit us? When the reality is that most of the time, God calls us for our good and his glory, and that means that we have to go through things that we don't want to go through, but it's all because God is trying to bring out the bigger picture. And in this case, it is the Israelites gaining their freedom. Now, the good thing about that is that it's not like Moses went to hell for this one mistake. God still honored him and had him in his glory later, but he still wasn't able to get to the promised land. So it's so good to be able to know that God still had him, but also to be challenged to not think that we are better than God. And God was so easy to be able to humble Moses in that way, but also know that, you know what, Moses, you did do a good job. This one slip of just I can't see through. You can't see it through, my boy. But nonetheless, God is still merciful, and he still had him for exactly where he needed him, and Moses is in the right throne of the Father with the Lord now. So it is really cool just to be able to see that transition. That's what I got out of it. What you guys got out of it? Go ahead, let me know.